All right, we are officially live. Welcome everybody to the very first episode of Hot Takes for Cold Feet. My name is Lancelot. I'm going to be your host. We are joined today by the absolutely lovely Professor Connie Messingir. Connie, tell the people about yourself a little bit.
I'm incredibly humbled and grateful to have the opportunity. I know this is like your first launch of this podcast, so incredibly humbled. Thank you, thank you, thank you. A little bit about me. I work as a pediatric occupational therapist for the past 7 years. I've been working with children for the past 12 years. As of yesterday, I have officially graduated with my doctorate in occupational therapy. I will Thank you. I'm so thankful, so grateful. It's definitely has been a journey. I hopefully officially will have completed this journey by mid-August.
Wow.
I Thank you. And I teach at university during the fall semester 2 occupational therapy courses. I recently published my first children's book entitled Breathe, Breathe, Breathe. And in my free time, as my passion, I really enjoy to speak and teach about mindfulness and meditation and share a little bit about my story, about my life and my upbringing and how I used it as opportunity for transformation and through my praying as opportunity for learning and for growing.
So, for those of us who barely made out of high school, what is occupational therapy? How does it work?
So, in a nutshell, simply put, is anything that occupies an individual's time. An occupational therapist can help if an individual is experiencing any difficulty. It can be something as simple as getting up in the morning, tying one's shoes, to eating. And especially I work with children, so a lot of the times I'm looking at play skills. How are they using their hands? How are they jumping and running? How are they seeing? How is their grasping? How is their ability to interact with other people? So in a nutshell, occupational therapy has to do with functionality. How are we functioning and interacting with our daily life? Do we have the skills and the ability to be able to live and be independent based on our own skills and our own abilities?
It sounds like a very challenging career, and it sounds like it takes a lot of personal investment. What made you decide to go down this road? What inspired you to do this with your life?
So I always knew at a young age that I was very interested in being of service. I always knew that it was going to be with children. To the degree of me ever dreaming of actually going to college, that was something that was never heard of, considering that I was the first immediate individual to actually attend college. Prior to me going to college, it was really unheard of. 2 years after I graduated with my occupational therapy degree, my eldest brother started to go into school. And it was, like I said, it was something I never really thought that I would do. I always knew I wanted to be of service. And what really inspired me to go into occupational therapy, when I was in my late teenage years, I was working with an individual who had Down syndrome, and I saw my role was to take her to and from therapy as well as work on with her some of her homework skills. And I had the opportunity to see the way she worked with occupational therapy, speech therapy, as well as special educational therapy as well. And I really was drawn to occupational therapy, especially the creative aspect of it, how the occupational therapists have the ability to play and have fun while at the same time working on skill level. And it was something I was really interested in when I was about 18, 19 years old. I was like, this is what I want to do. I love how this little girl is progressing. I love how the OT is interacting. And really drove me was the creativity and the out of the box thinking to really help this little one achieve her functional skills and abilities.
That's really incredible. You sound like a very great, genuine person. Just to backtrack a little bit, you said that college was unheard of. Why would you mention that?
So I grew up in a community that was very, very close knit. Some people would say that it was a little bit extreme to the degree of from 0 till about 7 and even till about 14 years old. The elementary school that I was in was really, really extreme. Some of the skills that were instilled were like a life book: how to get dressed up in the morning, who to speak to, who not to speak to, what to wear, what not to wear, how to get dressed in the morning. It was everything to the T, almost dictated. And it cultivated a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. And then ultimately it did get a little bit reinforced at home until when I was about 13, 14 years old, where I attended more of an open-minded high school, which I had a little bit more of leeway to do things, but it was also still a little bit very to the T, even in the terms of having, let's say, long hair. In high school, there's moments where I remember that I would be like really afraid and thinking about how long my hair was, because if it was very long, sometimes individuals potentially would come over and tell you, like, you need to cut your hair. So a lot of the times I would make sure to wear my hair in a pony or a bun just because I was really afraid of like having to cut my hair. And my parents didn't let me actually have long hair in elementary school or in high school because they knew the rules of the school, and because hair has a tendency to be really attractive, and it was something that this school really didn't want the individual to have the long hair. And in addition to that, having long earrings, wearing brightly colored nail polish, wearing brightly colored makeup was something that was a big no-no growing up.
Well, I probably wouldn't get away with these, would I?
No. You would just probably be expelled and like shipped off to another location far away.
Do you mind if I ask where you grew up?
So I grew up in an area in Brooklyn.
Really? Because like Brooklyn, just when you think of Brooklyn, you don't think of many old fashioned customs, which it sort of seems like you're describing. And I mean, how did that really affect you growing up? And when did you decide that you were going to branch out and be different?
So growing up, I didn't really know any better. I personally felt like, for the most part, 0 to 7, 0 to 8, that I grew up in this like little box where there was limited to no access to TV. There was certain foods and regulation and rules that I had to follow. And if I didn't follow, there was a lot of anxiety associated, like, oh my gosh, like I'm a bad person and I'm potentially going to hell. And that, if one thing that really comes to mind, when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I remember the teacher saying to us that if you speak too much and you use up your words and you speak very secularly, or you're not speaking about things that are very permissible, then you can use up your words and you can die at a very young age. And that scared the living daylights out of me. This poor like 7-year-old who really believed like in the adults and what they're saying. And then I became like almost like mute for a little bit because I was so afraid maybe that was going to be my last word, or I was speaking unkindly, or I wasn't like being that good girl. So I like needed to take that step back and be like, it's okay. And it didn't take until years later, until my mid-20s, to realize and to talk and work with a mentor that the teacher was just saying it because she wanted the students to be quiet. And me, I took it personally and I took it to heart, and I like really took it intricately. And then there's another example, and something else that comes up growing up as well, was in terms of food and making sure eating certain foods was okay and not okay. And I remember by mistake, I ate something that I wasn't necessarily allowed to. And then for me personally, I cultivated this fear about what can I eat? What can I eat? And then I had a little bit of a fear and a charge when it came to the foods that I would input in my body, because if I'm not eating the food that I'm allowed to, then ultimately, again, maybe I'm going to like die and like go to hell or something because I did something wrong. And this young innocent child that's absorbing all of this just had no idea, because she's like living in this box until she was exposed to extended family. And then she started to get a hold of like sneaking in that like TV in her bedroom when she was like 12 and 13 years old and watching whatever, and no one knowing. And now people will know that. Or reading.
Am I getting you in trouble now?
Oh, I hope like no one's like listening and watching and hearing. And one thing also in terms of oh no. But in terms of this school, having conversation or hearing the words such as evolution, vagina, penis, nipple, anything like that was like unheard of in the textbooks. It was actually etched out in black marker, and it was torn out. And keep in mind, the school that I was originally went to, this elementary school, you had access to specialized libraries. You didn't have access to internet. You didn't have access. You literally just had access to the books you had in your home, the books that you had in the special library that was handpicked and that was selected by the principal in the school. So what you're exposed to is not going to be this typical Amelia Bedelia book, or I don't know what kids are reading these days, but whatever kids are reading, you wouldn't have access to that in that library. So again, it cultivates being back inside this box, and for really young people not really being able to see that there's a world beyond this box, especially for me from like 0 to 7, 0 to 8, and then I started sneaking things in and started to like really like see that there's so much more that meets the eye with it over the years.
That's fascinating. I mean, when you said extreme, I think you understated it. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought it was bad because my mom told me if I put Matchbox cars in my mouth that I would get lockjaw. So I thought that was extreme. But yeah, it's really interesting. So, as far as what you do, well, actually, first of all, I'm sorry, I gotta stop myself. I'm supposed to ask you because we're supposed to ask everybody right off the bat. What are you sipping on? What you sipping on?
Where did it go? Oh, I am sipping on some nice, refreshing water.
Oh, that's boring. I have myself right here a wild cherry Pepsi. I probably had too much of it actually right now, but that's what we're sipping on, folks. Feel free to comment and let us know what you're sipping on.
Cheers.
So, because I'm such a professional, I have my questions over here. So, you told me about how you grew up, right? I know I saw before you were actually you appeared on an episode of Topic Time with Harrison Blake Young. I want to give him a shout out. He's a great guy. He gave me an opportunity as well. It was a lot of fun. But I noticed that you said on there that as you got older, you started to become really independent. You even dabbled in modeling, which is probably way out of bounds based on how you grew up. Tell me how that affected like your relationships with your family, with your friends, with your community in general. How did they see that?
So I think I did my first modeling. I think I was in about my early 20s, late teenage years. And like I mentioned, wearing, let's say, red nail polish is something that was very unheard of. And the dress that I actually modeled, and even wearing red or brightly colored clothing, is something that you don't necessarily want to wear because you don't really want to be perceived as very attractive, especially to the opposite sex. And that's something that I grew up in within my immediate home environment. And also, just in a nutshell, what I'm saying is really reflection of my own experience and my own upbringing. Someone else in the community will have a different experience and a different way of interpreting and perceiving it. And this is just my own charge and my own experience that has happened with me. So just disclaimer for everyone that may be hearing this. So I ended up modeling. The first dress was actually a bright red dress with bright red lipsticks and bright red nail polish and red shoes. And
you really went out there, huh? Just like way out there.
I really just did it all, full face of makeup. And it was something that it really offered me opportunity of me standing in my power. And I'm a female and I can dress, and it was a very modest outfit, and I can dress modestly and still be attractive and still be true to my value and still be true to my essence. And a lot of my family members like, this is not, and then on top of this, this picture actually got posted in a local magazine. And then having females' faces in a magazine, especially in the community, is very like hush hush, and it's something that the community is very not for putting as well, because again, it's the attraction of the woman, and they really don't want the other sex looking and seeing or thinking or doing, I don't know. So ultimately, this experience actually helped me step into my power and to realize like I can do this. And not only did I do one modeling, I did, I think, 5 or 6 within a few, like 2 or 3 years after that as well. And I did get a little bit of backlash from some of the family members, but for the most part, everybody was okay. And they realized that ultimately it's my life and it's my decision, and I can choose what I want to do with my life. I have the ability to decide. They weren't too happy about it, but they realized that. And I told them outright, if you're going to try to control me, then I'm going to do even more and even more. So just please stop and let me be. And then they like kind of respected that, and they just allowed me to just be for those moments.
That's good. That's good. You stood your ground. And, speaking of empowerment, why don't you tell us about your book? This is amazing. I mean, you go from a shy girl growing up in Brooklyn in a very, it sounds like inclusive or exclusive community. And now you're writing books and you teach, right?
Yeah. So like you mentioned, I grew up, I was incredibly shy. And I think some of it was some of the teachers that kind of planted seeds of like, especially as a female, to be seen, but not to be heard, being that good girl, dressing very modestly, not talking back, being very respectful, being very put together. And that really kind of hindered me to really fully be who I am. I ended up being very quiet. I ended up being this child that was very afraid of her own shadow, very afraid to speak up, very afraid to even look and have conversations with adults. And there was a lot of like belief systems that were surrounding that. And then over the years at like 17 and 18 at 20, I started really stepping into my power, and I started realizing a lot of the beliefs and a lot of the things that was instilled on me was a lot of like garbage. It wasn't in relation to anything or anything. It was very extreme. And I learned how to take some of the things that I learned and adopt it so that it felt more doable and it felt more comfortable and it felt more true to my own being. And it led me to think about my own childhood and how I was so enmeshed with a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety and a lot of childhood things that happened as well, in addition to the trickiness that I've experienced. And I was like, how can I be of service? And especially, I've dedicated the past 12 years of working with children. How can I be of service to better help these children? And the idea with this book, which is entitled Breathe, 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 it's all about teaching a child to stay tapped in and grounded into their own essence, their own innate being through mindfulness meditation. And my mission and the intention of this book is to teach children and to start planting that seed of mindfulness at a young age so that maybe when they're 18 and 19, there's going to be a little bit less stress, a little bit less anxiety, a little bit less emotional challenges, because they've already started to plant this mindfulness meditation seed to realize that who they are is essence and love and soul and kindness. They are not their physical essence. You and I are not. I'm not my blonde hair. I'm not my blue eyes. I'm not my body. I'm not my skin. I'm not my family. I'm not my friends. And if we can teach children at a young age to stay tapped into their essence of who they innately are, and then potentially reducing a little bit of that stress, a little bit of that anxiety. Anxiety, I think 1 in 5 children has an anxiety disorder. 1 in 5 children. And the intention is, if we can teach children as a way, as coping skills and as a way to stay within themselves, stay within the essence, I think that is a way to help reduce a lot of the mental health concerns that these children can and may experience, especially as they get older.
And where can people find that book right now?
So they can find it on my website, which is ChanieMessingir.com. Or they can also find it on Amazon. However, if they do buy the book directly from my website, I can send out a signed copy. If it's sent out through Amazon, I don't have access to the book, so I don't have the ability to sign those books.
Well, I am going to need one of those. That's for sure. Now, it based on the way that you grew up, I mean, there's the old cliche that Catholic girls, they grow up in this really strict environment, then they get unleashed on the world and they party and, live it up. Woo woo. You could have gone either way. And the fact that you chose to go the path that you've gone, it's very inspirational for anybody who's watching this or knows somebody who grew up in a really strict environment, that you can empower yourself. You can make your own choices, and you can, like you said, you can live modestly without going to extremes. You chose this path where you could have gone like the complete opposite direction, which I think is pretty incredible. Now, we talked a little bit about The Social Dilemma, the documentary that came out a little while ago. And we were talking about that because, social media, I'm not that great at it. But I just found it completely fascinating that people are so wrapped up in the insecurities for younger children. And I think it's great that you wrote a book like this to kind of give children a perspective. And like you said, empowerment, and they don't have to be like everyone else. They can be themselves. They don't have to conform and follow the fold. What's your opinion on social media and how it affects the youth these days as an educator yourself?
I think that social media can have its pros and its cons, especially being able to connect with people from all over the world. In the past, you wouldn't necessarily have the ability to do so. So that's a really big pro. Having access to research and evidence, I think that's really amazing and really great as well for the most part. However, in terms of sometimes what's being depicted and and displayed on social media, there's a lot that meets the eye. And especially for young girls and for young women out there might not be the realization that there's this picture perfect of this maybe mom and dad and a little dog and like another child there. And then right after the conversation, mom is like texting on her phone and then dad is like screaming and yelling at the child. It's the realization that there's so much more that meets the eye with the images and the pictures that are being portrayed. Another example might be this individual and this woman that looks incredibly beautiful and gorgeous. Her skin is flawless, her hair is flawless, everything just looks to the T. But in the reality, she's having so many different filters that she's using. And if you saw her in real life, it's so completely distorted on what image you're actually seeing online. And I think to women and to young girls out there is sending the message of perfection, and there really is no perfection, and there really is so much more that meets the eye than what's being portrayed on social media. And it's really discerning and realizing that the images that are being placed, especially Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, whatever is being placed on there, it's just moments and snapshot, and it's not a reflection of how the individual's collective life is. It's just a moment in time, and it's not. And there's also this components of comparing of my friend has 50 likes and I have 100 likes, and this person has 10 friends and I only have 5 friends, and that again, that also with the self-esteem and the self-worth and that seeking that external validations from other people can also have a really big negative impact on young individuals as well. So it's for people just to realize that there's so much more that meets the eye, and for kids out there, and to be very mindful about safety, about who are you connected with, this person, and especially for older men that might be connected with younger females, just realize that a lot of this time these people are not up to any good, and making sure that profiles are safety, private, protected, and that not everyone can have access to it as well, because there is manipulation. There are algorithms that are out there to really lure people in and to manipulate people so that they're staying addicted and so that they're staying on the screen as well.
Yeah, I try not to, I never really find myself scrolling through Instagram or Facebook. Very rarely I'll go on there and see what's going on. I don't get my news from Twitter. I get my news from Sports Talk Radio. I figure if it's important enough for me to know about, I'll get it there. And as far as filters go, I don't know about you, but I have a strict policy on no filters on dating profiles. If you're using filters on your dating profile, I'm skipping that. I'm sorry. I don't want to know what you think you should look like. I want to see what you actually look like. So now you mentioned mindfulness, right? Talk to me like I'm a 3-year-old. What is mindfulness and what kind of impact can it have on your life?
So mindfulness is about being right here, right now. We're having conversation. My complete and undivided attention, as best as I can, is with having conversation with you. My mind is not thinking about what I need to do tomorrow. What am I going to eat for dinner? What am I going to do when I'm flying out in 3 weeks? How am I going to book that rental car? My mind is, as best as I can, right here, right now. Mindfulness is about being in the present moment. And the second part of the question was, what was the second part? Sorry.
How can it impact your life?
So mindfulness can impact your life with everything and anything that you do, from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed at night, when you're interacting with friends or colleagues, when you're working on a school project, when you are at work, when you are sleeping and eating and dressing. Mindfulness can really have an impact on everything and anything that you do.
All right, awesome. I like to mix it up a little bit, so why don't we get to know you a little bit more, all right? What's your most irrational fear?
My most irrational fear.
It's something that's just so silly that, why?
Getting struck by lightning and being outside and meditating and having a massive rainstorm and then a lightning striking on the exact tree that I'm sitting under and then getting struck.
Oh, goodness. My most irrational fear is having a shark attack me at the beach. Maybe I guess that's not so irrational, but yeah, definitely just being on the ocean, being like, yeah, I'm going to get attacked by a shark. When like nobody really gets attacked by sharks.
So it's probably like 1 in like 1,000 or like
Millions.
500,000 or yeah.
I mean, think about how many people are in the water at the beach, just one beach that you go to, right? And just imagine all the coastlines, all the beaches in the world, how many people in the water, and how many times you hear about shark attacks. Do you believe in aliens?
Um,
And do they live among us right now?
it's a very interesting question. I don't know if you're familiar with Roswell in New Mexico.
Well, yeah.
I was there.
Have you seen, like, have you looked on Google Maps and seen the layout of Roswell? It's weird looking. Looking from the sky view.
I've gone there and I slept the night in a hotel there.
Nope, no, thank you.
In order to get into that area, just by the way, I've never experienced that before, there's checkpoints. And they actually ask you why you here, who you here, why, what do you want? And I'm like, I'm just here to experience Roswell. I'm pretty well traveled, and I've traveled through a lot of states and a lot of countries, and I've had that in other countries, but I've never had that in any state before.
Wow.
When I went prior to going to Roswell, I felt like there's maybe like a 5% chance, 8% chance that there's an existence of aliens. And after going there, I was like, there's maybe a 10 or a 15% chance. Do I believe that there's other beings and other essence that are around us right here, right now? 110%. Yes. So what makes me say that? And where do I maybe quote unquote have a little bit of proof on that? There was a scientific study actually on, I don't know the intricate details of it. They were trying to see, they had two separate plants and they wanted to see, they placed two plants by a window, same amount of sunlight, same amount of water, and they told individuals, one plant, we're going to say a lot of negativity. We're going to tell the plant, I hate you, you're horrible, you're disgusting, and for a week. And then the other plant right next door, literally same sunlight, same water, everything, wants you to tell the plant, you're incredible, you're amazing, thank you. And what happened within 1 week? The plant that had the negative affirmation, it withered away. So how can we not explain that there's some essence or there's something there? I believe that there's something more that meets the eye. Do I full-heartedly believe in aliens? No. Do I think that there might be something with it? I don't know. And do I attempt to know? It is what it is. If an alien spaceship landed here, right now, I'd be like, okay, hi, alien, you exist. But I don't think that's happening anytime soon. So in these moments, I'm like, I don't know. I personally don't think so. But after experiencing Roswell and experiencing that environment and hearing some people's stories and directly speaking to some people that were related to the incident that did happen, it makes me wonder. So I don't know.
There's got to be aliens out there. I mean, you have to be silly to think with all the millions of planets and galaxies and solar systems and whatever, we can't be the only life out there. There's got to be somewhere. You're never going to convince me otherwise. As far as like spirituality, that's an interesting take that you have. I mean, one thing that you could be certain of, I'm a bit of a science guy myself. Energy, you can't destroy energy. It just converts into another form of energy. And, one thing that science and psychology even has never been able to explain is the concept of the conscious mind, of the ability to create things that don't exist. No one's ever been able to explain that. And that energy has to come from somewhere, and that energy has to go somewhere else. So this gonna sound a little weird, but like I kind of believe in ghosts, but not ghosts. Their energy, like you said, being all around us. Like you could be surrounded by everybody you've ever known right now, and that energy can go anywhere it wants to at any point in time. And eventually that energy goes back into whether you believe in reincarnation or just the energy just happens to be out there and goes wherever. So that's pretty interesting take that you have right there. Let's see. I was going to ask you if you believe in ghosts. Sounds like you might, right? In a sense.
I think that my perspective is there is more that meets the eye and more that meets that we can actually see. And I personally believe that there is other essence and there's other maybe beings out there, however, that we may or may not be consciously aware of. And to the degree of yes or no, or I don't know, I'm at a space of it is what it is. And I personally haven't seen or haven't experienced, so I don't know.
So you practice mindfulness and meditation. something I've been dabbling with recently, which I don't know if I want to recommend it or not. Lucid dreaming and astral projection. Do you believe in any of that stuff? Do you think it's real? I mean, I can tell you, practicing the lucid dreaming myself for like the past year, I think I might have done it like 2 or 3 times, and it really freaked me out. Do you believe in any of that stuff? Do you practice any of that yourself, or are you more just reality focused, as being conscious and aware of who you are and what you're doing at the time?
So I personally am not really so familiar with lucid dreaming or asteroid travel. I'm not familiar with it. And
it's some really interesting stuff, that's for sure. It's along the lines of like the meditation world. I just didn't know if you dabbled in anything like more extreme than that.
So the type of meditation that I practice is something called Vipassana meditation, which is insight meditation. And it's really all about connecting back onto the breath, either from the nostrils, the chest, or the belly area. Anytime there's a thought or there's a feeling, it's refocusing and reoriented back onto the breath. And that's simply put what I practice.
That is pretty interesting. Do you have any unusual hobbies or any like magic tricks or anything that you can do that something unique about you that you show off at a party or in front of a group of friends? You play music? Do you draw? Obviously you write?
I write. I like to bike ride. I like to exercise and be out in nature. I hike a lot, especially when I'm traveling. Recently, my friend and I just booked a 10-day trip to Utah, and we plan on hiking 10 days, and there's supposed to be really, really sick hikes there. Something, I don't know if you're familiar with Angel Landing.
Nope.
That hike. So apparently, this hike, unfortunately, some people passed away. It's one of the most intense hike, I think, in the United States.
Wow.
One part of the hike, I'm not sure how many feet up in the air you go, but one part of the hike, there's actually, you need to literally rock climb. And if God forbid, like you miss a step, you can fall and die.
That's pretty intense. Where in Utah? I mean, I climbed Mount Ogden myself. That was pretty fun.
Nice. It's in Salt Lake.
Okay. So you're going to the main city. Yeah. Salt Lake's gorgeous. Utah is gorgeous. I did door-to-door sales for a long time. I traveled the country. We literally went city to city, state to state. And there are some places in this country that you'd never think that you'd ever want to go to that are just some of the most beautiful places. One is Utah. You go to Heber City, or I think it's Park City or Heber City. They have a tram that takes you over the entire city. So you get a bird's eye view of the entire place. It's so awesome. There's places like American Falls and Twin Falls in Idaho. Like, you're like, Idaho? By the way, I didn't see one damn potato when I was there. I don't know where they're hiding them all, but I didn't see any potatoes.
They were in Walmart. I went. I got some from there. They tasted the same as potatoes as in New York. There weren't any different. Just sorry to break it for people that haven't gone there.
So you said you did a lot of traveling. What's your favorite place that you've ever been to?
South Africa.
Really? Like the murder capital of the world? That's your favorite place?
In Cape Town.
Yeah.
Just the most gorgeous place I've ever been to. And I've been to Panama. I've been to Thailand. I've been to Israel. I've been to, where else? I've been to Europe, a lot of places in Europe as well. That's, for me personally, one of my most favorite gorgeous places I've ever been to. It's one of
South Africa.
Yeah. It's definitely a hidden gem, and I would highly recommend people to travel and to check it out.
Yeah, I think I might pass on that one. Panama sounds interesting. I would definitely do that. South Africa, that's pretty cool. I've only been out of the country 3 times. Montreal when I was 18, because you could drink in Montreal. I only went on St. Catherine Street, and I don't remember half of the trip. I also went to Juarez when I was staying in El Paso. Worst idea I've ever had. I spent 45 minutes in Mexico. I saw some stuff that I saw like some dude shoot a cop, and I was like, you know what? This isn't for me. And then I went to Tijuana, which was an even worse idea. Don't ever get in a cab once you cross over the border into Tijuana. That is the worst idea that you can possibly have. We got robbed. It was not fun. We ended up walking back to the border, and they didn't even question us. They were just like, "Come on, we know."
Oh my
But
goodness.
I got my first passport ever, because you didn't need a passport back in the day. You could just go, my first passport ever, like a month ago, and I'm excited to travel. I want to go to Europe. I want to, just go experience all these different cultures and different countries. I'm very jealous that you have, to be honest with you. Now, do you speak any other languages, or?
I can speak 2 other languages, and I can understand a third. So I can speak Hebrew, Yiddish, and I can understand Spanish a little bit, but I can't really speak it very well.
I would think that Hebrew and Yiddish would be the same language. I mean, of course, I'm sorry to be ignorant about that, but what's the difference?
It's similar, but it's different. Different in Hebrew, one word, there might be one, let's say, word, let's say tov is good in Hebrew, and ya or git is good in Yiddish. Even though it's different, it's a very different language. There's the same, just like in Spanish, let's say you have the word zapato, which is, you spell it out, Z-A, whatever it may be, or Z-O. Zapato, it means shoes in Spanish, right? We have the same alphabet, but then we say shoes, and shoes is English. So there's the same ABCs in Hebrew and in Yiddish, but there's different words that represent different things.
Interesting. Moving topics real quick. We talked earlier, to get to know each other a little bit and figure out kind of what we were going to talk about here, and the pandemic, in the way that it's affected people. Obviously, mindfulness is probably something that a lot of people could use right now. But how do you feel about the shutdowns and about the fact that instead of protecting the weak, we quarantined the healthy people, and all like it ran through nursing homes, and all these older people were dying all over the place. Like, do you think that if we took a different approach when the pandemic first kicked off, that there would have been a much different result as far as the deaths and the infection rates, and and if we had shut down right away instead of holding off for months and months, do you think there would have been a much better outcome? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot. We didn't really go over that, but
No, I think that I personally think that the states should have shut down way earlier. I think that's what led to the spread. I think the government had an idea of it, and things just got elongated. And I think the shutdown should have happened earlier, and that could have prevented potentially individuals from passing. However, with that being said, exactly how it was handled and exactly how things manifested is exactly how it was meant to be. If it wasn't to manifest this way, it wouldn't have happened. So clearly, this is the direction, and this is the way that it was supposed to, and it should have. And I personally believe and feel that it would have been better if the shutdown would have happened sooner, and that if the shutdown could have naturally have been slowly, if the states could have slowly opened up a little bit earlier as well.
Yeah, and the fact that we were shut down for so long, I think it's really transformed society into. I'm not sure what has transformed it. I know there's a bunch of people that don't want to go back to work, and I mentioned this to you earlier, that people who wish that they could have just sat home and collected a paycheck for nothing really took advantage of this opportunity. And if you look out there, people are hiring everywhere. I feel like we've made at least America even lazier than we were before. I think it's pretty gross, actually, and everybody seems to think that we can just print this free money and it's not going to affect anybody down the line. Listen, the government is not going to give you money without the expectation of getting it back times two. That people are fooling themselves if they think they're just going to get this free ride forever. Another thing too, I've noticed as people are starting to come back out, and I kind of like the roads when they were quiet. I'm not gonna lie, but now that people are coming back out, it just seems like everybody is even angrier and even in more of a rush than before. Have you noticed that? Like you said, you're in New York right now, or where are you at right now?
I'm in New York, New Jersey area. Yeah.
Have you
I
noticed that
personally,
people just have more of an edge now to them, or?
I think that even prior to the pandemic, there was the stress and there was the anxiety, and there's the individuals that are on welfare, whether they may need it or not. I think that was there beforehand, and now we're seeing it even more so. The individuals that maybe are quote unquote lazy, or the individuals that quote unquote are not interested in having the job or going back to work, I think it was something that was already there, and now we're seeing it even more so. And the hecticness and the busyness of it, it was always there, but it might be now maybe even more catapult, because a lot of people have been cooped up inside, and a lot of people are trying to get out and about. And I think the anger again was already there prior to COVID, and people were upset and already at edge. And now being at home and not really having the opportunity to do things, to go places, to travel, and to have the daily norm of things, it's just like exploding. And it's almost like this pressure cooker, or like this water bottle that we have, and that you're having a little bit of stress, then you're having anxiety, and then you're having a bad breakup, and then you're having financial concerns, and then you're having some more stress and more anxiety. And what happened? It's in this water bottle, and there's no more space for the water bottle to fill. And what happened? It just bursts, and it comes out as anger, and it comes out as hate, and it comes out as rioting, and it comes out disconnect, and it comes out of maybe laziness, and it just catapults into the world. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. And it's something that has always been there, but it's just at a bigger scale and a larger scale, because people, it's just like that seed, and that plant is blossoming, and it's just like exploding everywhere.
Yeah, you should see the 311 line in Boston. It's actually pretty funny. Things that people would normally complain about their neighbors about, like noise complaints, and now everything is COVID. It's like, this dog is barking, spreading COVID everywhere.
Let's say it's COVID. Okay, I'm having stress and anxiety. It's COVID. I'm upset. It's the government. It's like, okay, let's blame it. Let's blame it. But then it's like, ultimately, it's like looking back and looking into oneself, because it's never really on the outside. It's never the person. It's never the friend. It's never the girlfriend. It's never the partner. There may be triggers, and there may be unhealed wounds, but ultimately it's the individual that's getting triggered, and it's not from the outside that's causing any of it. It's not COVID that caused any of it. It definitely heightened, and there's definitely pain and grief, and especially like New York, and I'm sure in Massachusetts as well. Everyone's been affected to a different degree. I'm sure you and I, we each know of somebody, or directly, I personally know of individuals that have passed away. So we've all been impacted. It's not to say that this hasn't happened and people haven't been impacted by it. However, it is to say it's not the impact, it's not the deaths, and it's not the grief that is the trickier. It's the challenge. It's how we're processing, and how we're responding, and how we're dealing with it. Are we using it as empowerment or disempowerment? Are we using it as a blame, or as we're using it as opportunity and time for self-reflection? Are we using it as getting upset and frustrated and angry, or are we using it, taking that reflection? Where is this pain? Where is this trigger? Maybe it's from childhood, maybe it's from my mom, maybe it's from my dad, but ultimately I'm in my 20s. Ultimately, I'm in my 30s. I'm 40, I'm 50. Ultimately, it's not any of that at these moments in time. So it's the realization of what is happening right now. It's always been, just at a bigger scale.
I think it's just made people way more sensitive. Like, cancel culture has gotten at least 4 times worse since this whole thing kicked off, really. Because I think people just when you give people too much time to themselves and leave them to their own devices, they just come up with some of the craziest ideas. Like, what's your take on like the whole cancel culture, like going back and looking at people's tweets or messages from like 10, 15 years ago and persecuting them and calling for their jobs and calling for their heads, and like comedians being afraid to perform because they don't want to say the wrong thing? Because, do you feel like there's people out there that are just looking for a reason to be angry at somebody?
I think that it's important to note the content of where something is said. If something was said 10 years ago, bringing it now, times has changed and transformed so much, it's really not okay to be bringing up right here. It's not really relevant. What's relevant is right here, right now, in the moment. And if individuals are feeling a little bit upset or offended by a comedian or an actor or what someone may have said, it's the realization of what is that giving context? Where is it coming from? What's the content? And not taking it and pulling out of that content, because one content may be X and another content may be Y. And it's just the realization of where was it intended for. And it's ultimately the realization of, let's say you have the sign on your back that says "kick me." And it's like, okay, you're saying kick me, so what are people going to do? They're going to come over and they're going to kick you. And if you're going to a show, you're going to a theater, you're watching a TV show, it's realizing the content that you're watching. If an individual is talking about something that you're feeling sensitive to, then please don't go watch it. Please take that step back. If an individual is being disrespectful, if they're violating the safety or the welfare of others, no if and or buts. However, if it comes from out of a place of the person is being very mindful and attentive and they're thinking about it and it's playful and there's not that charge with it, I think that's okay. It's really, where is that space? Where is it coming from? Again, is it violating someone's respect? Is it safety? Is it threatening some society or some group? Then it's not acceptable and not okay with it. And I think it's realizing, again, the content and the space and the place, where is it coming from?
Well, circling back to social media, I don't do Twitter because Twitter is a friggin' cesspool. I don't understand negative comments on people posting like pictures of themselves or what they're eating or anything. If you don't like it, move on. Move on. Like, I don't understand negative comments. Like, there seems like there's people out there that hate themselves so much that they want to bring other people down. So if you don't like it, change the fucking channel. You know what I mean? Don't look at the person's post. Don't follow them. Why use your energy to try to take down somebody else who's trying to present themselves out there? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's a lot of the times I think in general when I'm posting anything to social media, it's the realization, how is people going to take it? Even this interview, how is people going to take it? And there's going to be people that are going to say, wow, it's amazing and it's lovely and incredible. Then there's going to people be like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, this is disgusting. And anytime you're putting yourself out there, it's the realization that you're going to have this continuum of things. And when there is the negative comments that individuals being faced with, it's like, okay, it is what it is. When you're putting something out there, it's the realization of that. And for individuals that are feeling very strongly negative or strongly really disliking, like you said, you have the option of unfollowing, you have the option of changing the channel, going on to a different page and not associating and linking or interacting with the person. And a lot of the time, sometimes when negativity are coming, when an individual is typing something negative, it's coming out of their own inner triggers, their own inner need. It's coming out of their own place of lack, own space of lack. That's where they're projecting and they're putting it onto the other person. And a lot of the times it stems back to some type of faulty belief or some type of faulty habit that's triggering. And if they take the opportunity to deconstruct what's coming up for them, then the negative comments most likely wouldn't have been written in the first place.
Well, I agree with you. I think people hate the things that people hate the most are the things that they're afraid that they see in themselves. I totally agree with that. I think a lot of it is projection due to lack of self-reflection. That's what I like to say.
We're all reflection. What you see in me is a reflection of what you see in yourself. What I see within myself is a reflection of potentially what other people may see in me. We're all just mirrors. We're all reflecting one another. And especially when we're triggered, like you mentioned, it's if I'm feeling like really extreme hate, it's like, oh my gosh, what am I extremely hating about myself?
Yeah. And that's what I really think is cool about the mindfulness, which I've been practicing it. I can't imagine how long it took you to get to it. Like, how do you, in this world of craziness with stress and drama and anxiety and being an empath, kind of like myself, how do you separate yourself and censor yourself? Like, how do you put that wall up, that awareness of what you're doing, and when it's time to take a step back? How do you know when that's happening? How are you able to do that?
There's two parts to it. So you're mentioning, like, how did I get into this mindfulness? How did I get into this meditation space? And how did it take? And how did it work for me? So I'm actually going to be doing a talk about this in about 2 weeks at a music festival for like individuals in their 20s, 30s, and onwards.
Promote it.
No, the intention is, I can definitely promote it. It's called Sababa Music Festival. The intention is not necessarily to promote it, but can definitely promote it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. So the idea of it is big there's a lot of meditation myths, and one of the myths is that I had very, very, very early on, when I was introduced to meditation when I was about 17, 18 years old, is I can't do it. I need to quiet my mind. I'm a bad meditator. I can't sit still. This is a religious practice. It's only for monks. And I had a lot of these belief systems that I wasn't really interested in meditation until I was about 23 years old. And I was this person that was very caught up within anxiety. Like I mentioned, I was very afraid of my own shadow. I was very afraid to speak, and I was very fidgety, and I couldn't sit for the life of me. And I was the person that wouldn't speak. I was the person that would turn and like run away and like hide. And through meditation consistently over the past 5 years, I've had the ability to transform stress and anxiety and nip it in the butt in a 120, 80 degrees through my practice. And it wasn't easy. It was gradually 5 minutes and then 10 minutes and then 15. Now at this point, I have 1,000+ hours of meditation, and I'm able to sit and meditate for hours at ends without needing to get up and move. But it was a practice. And for people that are potentially interested in learning how to meditate, and this is something that I'm going to be saying at this music festival and that I looked at research. So we all are familiar with Martin Luther King, and the night before he got assassinated was a speech that he spoke about on the mountaintop, and he got assassinated the next day when he was 39 years old in Memphis, Tennessee, and we all were familiar with that. And one thing that people may not know, the individuals that did the autopsy, they said that if you didn't tell me that this was Dr. Martin Luther King's body, I would have thought that this is a body of a 60-year-old man. And why is that? We all have our chronological age and we all have our biological age. Our chronological age, every 12 months, we're turning a different year. We're 25, then we turn 26. Our biological age research shows that it has directly to do with our health. So our biological age is going to have to do with our heart integrity, our lungs. It has to do with our brain and our movements and our muscles. It has to do a lot with our physiology, our internal happenings in our body. And so our biological age may be a lot higher, even though, let's say I'm 26 years old, my biological age may be 36 years old because of all my stress. And the researchers saw that with Martin Luther King, because he was exposed to so much stress, it physically had an impact on his body. And if we're interested in learning, and if we're interested in expanding and living here to be in the world, one way that we can expand our life is through meditation, and we can reduce our biological age by reducing our stress. And meditation, there's evidence to show how meditation can reduce that. And it's like everyone files their taxes, and we all file our tax returns, and we all file to get back the money that we're meant for that year. And meditation is like a free refund for our life.
Now, do you think it's possible through meditation to reverse some of the damage that stress has done?
100%. I think so. Yeah.
Because I feel like an 80-year-old man. I mean, maybe it's just because, I'm fat. But yeah, no, honestly, I mean, that's pretty incredible.
When I read that and when I looked into that, I was like mind boggled with it. And like I mentioned before, meditation can change everything and anything in your life. It's just not this magical pill that you just take and then la-di-da. It's through building a practice. It's through minding the mind and building that mind muscle that you have the ability to change your perceptions, your beliefs, your everything and anything that you do. And my life completely had a 180 degree with it, and we all have the ability to do so.
So what advice would you give to somebody who is skeptical of meditation? Maybe they're a shy person, maybe they're an introvert, maybe they deal with a lot of anxiety. What kind of advice would you give them to get them started?
I would say starting out with an app, Headspace, Insight Timer, Calm app, those are really great. And starting out, setting a reminder every day, maybe the morning or night before you're going to sleep, 1 minute a day of just gently closing your eyes, maybe placing your hand on your heart and maybe your hand on your belly, and just connecting with your breath every single day. Doing that for a week, and then gradually maybe increasing the time to 2 minutes and then 5 minutes. And for individuals that have experienced trauma, individuals that are experiencing a lot of anxiety or stress or depression, please reach out to a licensed coach or therapist or someone that can help, and that know that you're not alone and that you have the ability to heal your pains and your traumas. And it's not something that's magical and it'll happen overnight, but through time, through reading, through practices, through meditation, through a really great mentor, individuals have the ability to heal. And I'm a living example of that.
So what advice would you give to a 7-year-old Connie?
I would say that you are love and light and essence, and you may be struggling right now, and you may be having a lot of stress in relations to your grades and to your family and your family environment. And no, because of these experiences, years down the line, when you're in your 20s, you're going to have the ability to learn how to transform that and use it as a superpower. And you will be speaking and you will teach and you will help others that were in similar situations to you to step into their power.
I think it's incredible that you are willing to give so much of yourself to other people, as you said, to be in service of other people. It's a very selfless act, and I think you're gonna go. I think you're gonna go really far. I'm excited to check out this book. I want to thank you for your time. It's been so much fun. I really loved learning all about you. I hope we can do this another time. Is there anything that you want to promote? How can people reach out to you? Where can they find you? Where can they follow you on social media?
Thank you. I'm incredibly humbled and honored to have this conversation with you. Thank you. You definitely offered me the opportunity to kind of think of things in a different perspective, and I appreciate that. So thank you for that. So if people are interested in one-on-one learning about mindfulness meditation, as well as groups, and people that maybe have children that are from 0 to 18 to 21 years old that are struggling with their occupation-based skills and activity. Maybe they're interested in occupational therapy coaching for themselves or for their children. They can feel free to find me at my website at ChanieMessinger.com, which is ChanieMessinger.com, and soon to be doctor in occupational therapy, which I'm incredibly humbled and I can't believe it's actually happening very, very soon.
That's incredible. I mean, you look like a kid. Seriously, you're a kid doctor over here. Honestly. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. It was great having you. And, guys, check her out.
This interested?
Incredible. Yeah, go get the book.
This is my book, and if you want to see a quick sneak peek, they're illustration by my beautiful friend Danny, and this is just a little sneak peek of an image here. This little girl, she's noticing her breath and her breathing as she's sitting in this nice, beautiful beach. And just the pictures, it's just a work of art, honestly. It's just about being connected to one's breath in a very fun, natural way.
Now, they can find this book on your website, but they can also find it on Amazon, right? But if they find it on your website, you can sign a copy and send it to them, right?
Exactly. And I'm incredibly...
Guys, this girl, she's a rising star. Get this book. Get the autograph before you have to start paying for it, all right? Connie, thank you so much, all right? We're going to wrap it up with a little... Here's our outro. I'm still experimenting. But thank you, everybody, for checking out my first episode of Hot Takes for Cold Feet. We're going to be doing this every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. We made an exception tonight. Chanie had stuff that she had to do, and that's fine. So we'll see you guys next Wednesday. Hot Takes for Cold Feet. Can you hear that? Is that loud enough?
You can't really hear it.
Can't hear it at all. That's
no. Cool. Do you have a mic or do you have something to amplify it?
Yeah, I do. It's called a volume control.
There we go.
Good night, everybody. See you next week. Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.